Alright guys, so we're going to get started here. Welcome to the finals of JustSin's Team League. This is going to be a little bit of a repeat. The videos are a little bit delayed, but we are going to have the videos from the third round going up shortly. Finals here, competing for first and second, we have Team DBC, that is E-Hustle, Measle, and J-Siri, against their opponents, which will be Sneaky Little Green Men, and that's going to consist of Seaweaver, Drinkard, and Sneak Attack Kid. Now this is, again, a bit of a repeat from last week, so both teams had a bit of an introduction to see just how things will play out. Drinkard is going to be the stompy player, and I think the one with the best matchup. What we saw last week, E-Hustle again playing Tortured Existence, a very hard thing to try and commentate, so I will do my best. But what we saw last week is that E-Hustle almost all killed this team. The person who actually managed to save the game for Team Sneaky Little Green Men was in fact Drinkard, and he is going to have the best possible matchup. So the plan going into this game for Sneaky Little Green Men is obviously going to be starting with the one player who they know can beat this deck, know they can take down Tortured Existence, because you have Sneak Attack, who's playing mono black, and that is an absolutely terrible matchup for Team Sneaky Little Green Men. Great matchup there for the Tortured Existence. So we're going to have this attempt, Stompy being the best matchup. Elves is also not a great one because E-Hustle does have several Crypt Rats and plenty of options to kind of keep that board clear. So it's going to be definitely a tough matchup here for Sneaky Little Green Men, but if they're going to be able to pull this off, they need Drinkard here and his Stompy deck to pull off this win against E-Hustle. So we're seeing things getting off to a really fast start. E-Hustle does get down that early Tortured Existence. We saw a little early damage there going on from Drinkard off of that Rancor. And plenty of kill here for E-Hustle, not hitting red mana just yet, but really not necessary at this point. Already getting the Fume Spitter cycling back on. That's going to be pretty good against Stompy. There are plenty of 1 toughness creatures in that deck. And it looks like he may have kept... Okay, he has a second forest. I was going to say it looks like he may have kept a little bit of a greedy hand there. But he is going to be okay so far, at least, as far as hitting those mana drops. Now, what we saw last time... was definitely a very tough matchup. A couple of misplays, I think, from E-Hustle, but Drinkard was able to actually take this down last week. And again, that was kind of a warm-up match, a preliminary, if you will, for this particular matchup. And we'll have to see what, if anything, they can do against this. It looks like another Ranger coming down, 1 green open. We know he does have Rancor there, but he's not going to attempt to play it. The nice thing about Rancor is that it's going to come back. If he attempted to use that Rancor in response, clearly the Fume Spitter would have been activated, which would have, killed off the Ranger. The Rancor wouldn't resolve, and it would be permanently staying in the graveyard. So instead of doing that, he's going to allow E-Hustle the opportunity to try and kill off the Ranger. And it looks like in response, he does have Hunger of the Howl Pack, which is going to be definitely beneficial. Couple of cycles here on Tortured Existence, a little bit of life gain and whatnot going on for E-Hustle, but it does seem that the Hunger will resolve. The Fume Spitter will not successfully kill this Ranger, and it will stay on the table. But setting up E-Hustle probably for... We'll have to see, but we have to imagine he has something decent going on. 3 cards in hand, one of those is a Brown Scale. So plenty of cycling of creatures, plenty of life gain going on there. Back up to 22 life already. But you do have the Aquarian Ranger sitting at 3/3. So cycling off some things, obviously bringing back the Fume Spitter. This is kind of what we're going to see all day if Hustle does stick around, and if Drinkard cannot pull this out. We could actually see a couple of fast games 2 and 3. But definitely the toughest match for these teams. A little bit of concern. E-Hustle was running a little bit late, but unfortunately for Team Sneaky Little Green Men isn't going to get any benefit from that, as we were running a little behind getting things started anyways. And if Hustle had not shown up, they would have been forced to start off with J-Siri or Measle to try and pull off those wins. So Rancor coming down, at least going to, at this point in time, give him that trample ability. That's going to be the big important part. The 3 toughness means that E-Hustle could block with all 3 here, and essentially make that trade, taking only 2 damage, putting him still at only 22. The Marshal obviously dying and creating yet another Goblin token, and just putting that Fume Spitter back in the graveyard, something easy for him to find. 1 card in hand for Hustle could be a little bit concerning. I think he's going to be fine. However, you know, he's already really built things up, already has red mana available, Tortured Existence in play, Brown Scale in the graveyard, and the Fume Spitter. And what the benefit really is here for this particular matchup, you will see, I think, a little bit of a struggle here out of Drinkard. Looks like he has something going on, maybe. Ooh, another Hunger going on the stack. Interesting timing. It's going to keep that alive. Unfortunately, he does not get the morbid benefit out of that because no creatures had died. And he's only going to do a measly little bit of damage to E-Hustle, who's still easily above 20 at this point. But where the real benefit comes for this particular matchup, as I was saying, is actually in games 2 and 3. Drinkard has some options. Oh, and another Ranker. All of a sudden, this Ranger is getting very, very big. But he does have to watch out for some of these kill spells. We do know that Edict is what is being run by E-Hustle there. So you have to watch out, having only one creature on the field. Obviously, he doesn't have anything else to sacrifice to it. But it looks like land going down for E-Hustle. We know he brought back that Brown Scale to go up some life. So we know that he currently has nothing to kill. So we're going to see quite a bit of damage actually coming out from this Ranger. Swinging through, possibility of 8. If he blocks there, it's only 7. It looks like he is going to take it. And down comes a third Forest. End of turn. What is being cast here? 5 mana. He's going to... he's going to just dump all 5 of that black mana into cycling Brown Scale. And dredging it up for a bit of life. Ooh, I'm sorry, not dredging it up, just simply returning it and gaining that life. I think I have made that mistake last week, and I was just so tired of watching E-Hustle kind of solo play in Tortured. But what the nice thing is about Brown Scale there is that when you activate it with Tortured, you do not have to activate the dredge ability. You're instead actually just, you know, this ability is when it's returned from graveyard. It is not actually based entirely upon the dredge. So I apologize for any confusion I may have had on that. But so what damage was done looks like it is easily going to be countered out by a significant gain on life and an actual dredge here coming up on this turn. So let's see what he loses there. He does lose. Crypt Rats could have been nice, especially with this mana available to him, but he is going to be able to get that back again. A lot like Dredge, what this deck is going to look to do is manipulate the graveyard. So, you know, we talked about how Teachings is the toolbox in your deck. Tortured Existence ends up being kind of the toolbox in your graveyard. So all of these cards in his graveyard are things that he can now get back based on whenever he actually wants them. So he's going to have, you know, the option to get back Crypt Rats and clear that off. Looks like he's opting for Fiend right now. See what these 3 cards are in Drinkard's hand. We have to imagine that there are some pump spells in there. I don't think he has skipped any land drops, but that's basically been because of the Ranger. So for all we know, there could be just additional lands. We'll have to see what he decides to remove, see if there was actually anything in there that is not a land. And there is a 3rd Ranker. Oh, man. That is definitely brutal. Kind of interesting that that didn't come out last turn based on 3 untapped lands. I don't know if he was trying not to be too greedy in the all-in there. We'll have to see what's going on. There appears to be a bit of a misplay. They're discussing it now in chat. But you see, you know, the life gain that Hustle is back up to 23 already at this point. So that, you know, 8 damage that came through with the Ranger, you know, Hustle didn't have to block that at all. And instead just took the 8 damage, gained way more than 8, you know, to bring himself back up to this point. But we're going to see another attack coming through with Drinkard. You know, while it will appear that he needs to do 23 damage in a turn, he just eventually has to do more damage than is possible for Hustle to gain life off of continued use of the Brown Scale. So we'll have to see what can come of that. I don't know if I ever finished my point from earlier, but where this is going to come into play is definitely better on games 2 and 3, because the sideboard that Drinkard has is actually incredibly effective against this particular matchup. He's going to be able to bring in not only some disenchant effects to get rid of those Tortured Existence, but more importantly, he's going to be able to bring in the relics. And Relic of Progentus is something that isn't played very often. The fact that he has it kind of makes Drinkard kind of a toolbox and a great option for this team. to take down many decks. There's not a lot of decks that would be running any kind of Grave Hate, and so that use is definitely an improvement. Now, the Bog is something that we have seen in occasional black decks, mostly in black-blue control, not in a straight mono-black form. And the reason that we don't see a lot of Grave Hate, and the reason that eHustle can continue to be so successful with this deck, is the fact that there isn't much in the way of Grave Hate going on. So, you know, he can bring in those relics, and it's going to really cause issue. That's the one thing that Hustle really can't deal with. We did see, actually, last week, if you guys caught those matches. If not, they will be up again on Mtgo Academy YouTube. If you did catch those matches, there were, I think, at least one game, might be more than that, but I know there was at least one, where eHustle did not actually manage to get a Tortured Existence into play and still managed to pull out the win. So what that shows you is that, you know, first off, the experience. eHustle is the most experienced with the deck, and so, you know, if anyone's going to be able to pull off that kind of win, it's going to be him. And secondly, it just goes to prove that he does not need the Tortured Existence in order to win this. He can manage without it, and we have to kind of keep an eye on also. Again, like I said, this is a follow-up from last week's game. One of the things that we had to worry about was Drinkard. I guess he was having connection issues, but he did get really low on his clock, and definitely made me nervous at the very least. So it looks like Hustle finds himself a Stinkweed Imp, which is going to be great. That's going to provide a lot of answers for killing off creatures. I guess it's definitely helpful to have this Shinin in play. It's going to force the blocks, which is definitely beneficial because the Stinkweed Imp is going to sit here and start picking off these creatures one by one as it blocks, and it's going to obviously come back every turn as Hustle needs it. So while it's nice to have this nice big Ranger in play, it's going to be definitely tricky to try and get damage through, because you may get one big hit through, but it's going to be basically a trade for the Imp. And kind of more importantly, the fact that you'll get the one big hit through, but what's going to happen is it's going to be canceled out by the life gain. Now, we saw a Kicked Vines on the Shinin of Life's Roar, which is a little bit interesting. The ability on the Spirit here is that all creatures able to block it do so. So on this attack, these three creatures would all be forced to block it. Now, without the pump spell, you are looking at a simply 1/2, but the creature is going to die anyway to the Stinkweed Imp. By pumping it up, what he's forcing through is the death of basically the Fiend and the Goblin and the Imp. You know, he would have had the option to simply kill off one of these. I feel like that's a little unnecessary, but, you know, they have to have some kind of plan. He's going to be able to get this Ranker back, has 1 mana obviously open, he could replay it. But, you know, this is, I feel a little bit wasted, because, you know, sure, you're going to get to kill these off, but you are going to be forcing all three to block anyways, and the Imp is going to kill it off. So we're going to have to see what they have up their sleeves. As I said, he is going to get the Ranker back at the very least, with the possibility of putting it on his Ranger. But I think next turn we are simply going to see activating the Ranger's ability, 2 mana open, playing a creature here. Okay, we are going to at least see, I believe, the use of the Dredge ability on that Imp in eHustle's graveyard, which will provide that blocker that he needs once again to kill off this Ranger on the attack. We are looking at, that was a Hunger that came in with the Morbid ability. Pumps up this Skulk to a 5/5. We know he has a Ranker in hand. That one card is Ranker coming down, I'm guessing next turn on the Skulk, giving them both trample. Plenty of mana here. He's probably deciding if he's going to dredge. Doesn't dredge the Imp. Okay, that's interesting. But still potential to gain a significant amount of life off of the brown scales with that 5 black mana available. We will have to see what he has up his sleeve. I am not aware, I think, of what card is there. Another Fiend coming down. That's going to remove the Ranker. So now he's going to be able to simply chump block this 5/5 Skulk. And that's definitely a blow to Drinkard. Definitely unfortunate there, but I think he's still in a decent position. eHustle, again, 4 mana open, still going to be able to activate the brown scale, I believe 4 times. Unless my math is just terrible, which it might be. The more important thing here is that he's still going to have the Imp in play. You know, it's in the graveyard now. Still plenty of cards to dredge that up, put it back as necessary. Even probably if that one card, you know, is actually a creature, going to have options to bring it back right now. So, Drinkard on the draw. Looks like he's going to go straight to the attack. And again, oh, actually he's going to get the damage through on Skulk. I keep forgetting the that second ability on Skulk. For those of you like me who are spacey, it does have that power less than, can't block it. So the Fiend is not going to be able to block it. A little bit beneficial to Hustle, I guess. Unless he doesn't have any answer here, obviously going to have to gain some life off the brown scale, or this is going to just be game. But, you know, a little bit beneficial because he kind of doesn't want this Fiend to die. It would give back the Rancor, which would provide the Skulk with that trample. We'll have to see what he can pull off here. Is getting 2 life here on the brown scale. Here comes another 2 life. And another 2 life. And another 2 life. Yep, so my math was correct. 4 activations there on the brown scale. Going to put him up 8 additional life, basically canceling out the damage done by this Ranger, and he's only going to get through 5 on the Skulk, putting him back down to 14, actually above where he was. So he's currently able to kind of gain... oh god, my math is just terrible. He's able to gain enough damage, we see at this point in time, to cancel out the Ranger. And it looks like that card drawn there was a Young Wolf. Something that has been kind of joked about as, I guess E-Hustle has been having a couple of misplays. Didn't quite understand how that Young Wolf works. We'll have to see what Hustle has. Again, 5 mana means at the very least he can go up 10 life. But that is not going to be enough, just gaining 10 life, to keep himself still in this game. So on the draw, deciding if he's going to dredge or if he's going to draw. Looks like he's going to take the draw. A little bit of thought going on here. Last time, I do believe we did see Drinkard pull out this match against E-Hustle, but it did take him 3 matches to do so, or 3 games to do so. Alright, tapping out only 3 to gain some life off these brown skills makes me wonder what he's got going on if he's only devoting 3 mana to that activation. Uses it twice, goes up 4 life, puts him at 10. 1 black floating at this point. Easily be another activation of Tortured, 3 mana open for, I guess, the return of a Stinkweed? If he so desired and wanted to use it to block off the Ranger. It looks like another brown scale coming back. And another brown scale. Two mana available. And he brings back the Carabid. So he's going to get a card draw off of that cycle there. Let's see, 14 life right now. It's going to be just enough to put him out of range, unless, of course, Drinkard managed to find himself a pump spell here, because he's only looking at 14 damage on the field, because we're going to assume that the Rancor is going to be returned as the Young Wolf gets blocked by the Fiend. Or I guess at the very least, he could block the Ranger, prevent 1 damage there, and that would prevent the Young Wolf from getting bigger on dying. 1 card in hand, though, we will have to see what he possibly has. If he's got a pump spell here, he's going to be able to pull off this win. Drawing a card here, sorry, we're going to get lost in this, goes up another 2 life. Get lost a little bit in the chat log there, but we're going to find it. Going up 2 life puts him down to 2. Looks like there was no pump there from Drinkard, and was able to basically bypass the sacrifice of the Fiend, thanks to that extra life gain. So we'll have to see, again. Looks like he takes the draw. Right? Yep, takes the draw. Sorry. When you follow Tortured Existence like this, you kind of have to pay attention to the chat log to kind of understand all the interactions and the commentating here. So, going to continue to activate Tortured. Oh, nope. This time targeting down the Carabid for future life gain. I'm sorry, card draw. Faithless Looting here is going to provide him with, again, another opportunity to activate the brown scales. Those are going to go on the stack. We're doing significant damage here for the Stompy player, but it's just not been enough to quite pull out this win. It has to definitely be frustrating. I'm assuming the one card in his hand might be a land. Maybe he doesn't want to throw out an additional creature just in case. We know Hustle does run Crypt Rats. Be interesting. I imagine it has to be, you know, maybe it could be a Vines, but I feel like if it was a Vines, he would have gone for the win there on the previous turn. Let's see real quick. You know, if he's holding back for Crypt Rats, there is only one, and we do see that Crypt Rats is here in the graveyard. So it could come back at some point in time, but I think eHustle would have had to do something about it sooner. Drinkard up to 2 cards now in hand. One of those at least was a forced. I would not, again, be surprised if the other was. We'll have to see if he can pull out a win here. Finally attacking through. Again, can prevent one with a block here on the Fiend. 4-mana open means the activation of Tortured 4 times, if that's going to save him. I'm not sure it does. Looking at swinging through with 14 damage. What does Hustle have? Figure he's got to have something. Drawing a card off the Carabid, see if maybe something comes up. His graveyard is getting way too big for this little tiny window. And he's just going to concede out. Okay, that's good, because I was apparently failing at enlarging this graveyard. So these two are going to go to sideboarding, and that's a very, very good win for Team Sneaky Little Green Men. That is a very important win because, as I said last week, these two teams ended up playing in what would end up being a preliminary match for the finals here. And what we saw is that eHustle managed to take down pretty much all of their team, but their final player, Drinkard here with Stompy, was able to come in and kind of save the team by pulling out a win against eHustle. Now, what's important here is the fact that when this happened last week, it took them to 3 games. So being able to pull down this first win, if Drinkard can pull down this match 2-0, that's going to be significant. I think he's actually got an incredible sideboard for this particular matchup, as I said earlier. He's got a lot as far as ability to counter a lot of things out of his sideboard. And that's something we've actually seen quite a few times out of Stompy. The biggest things that we can see from Drinkard is obviously going to be the 2 Relic of Pergentus. We'll have to see how he takes things. Obviously having Sea Weaver, and he's got Sneaky Attack Kid on his team, they'll be able to kind of help him out. A little bit of coaching definitely will be able to go on there and see what he wants to pull off. That is something you have to decide whether or not you're going to aggressively mulligan down to find those, but those are going to be key in this matchup. Those can definitely take things down, but we also see a full set of Gleeful Sabotage. There's going to be at least one of those brought in, definitely more. That will again help take down eHustle's tour. We have again though seen that he is able to pull things off without it. So we'll have to see. Again, this is going to kind of come down to draw, but things are looking pretty good for Team Sneaky Little Green Men in this first game, as Drinkard's able to pull down that first game. You know, it's definitely an improvement from last week, where we saw it did, again, have to take him 3 games. As far as Hustle goes, he's still got plenty of options. Also a pretty good sideboard as far as that's concerned. Another Crypt Rats is there and available for him. He has 3 copies of Diabolic Edict he could definitely bring in, and that would have, you know, helped him out majorly against that Ranger in the first game. What else does he have? He could bring in the additional Fairy Macabre that could be beneficial against things like Rancor and Young Wolf, which we do see here on turn 1. So a very good start for Drinkard. One of the strongest starts you can have out of that particular game. We could also see him possibly bring in the Marshals for chump blockers. Unfortunately, if he can land those Rancors, the Stompy player is going to be pretty well off. So we'll have to see what eHustle decides to bring in here. Hits both colors pretty early. That's kind of nice for him. But we so far don't see a Tortured. Oh, 1 black. Fume Spitter. Okay. Fume Spitter is going to be pretty nice. Obviously, again, taking down several of the important creatures for Stompy. We're going to have to pay attention to eHustle's use against Young Wolf, because he did have a bit of a misplay last week. But, you know, that could definitely be in his favor. Now he learns from his mistakes. He sees where he went wrong, and he's going to be able to hopefully avoid that. And it looks like actually Drinkard brought in Bone Splitters, which is going to be nice. I think he only actually had 1 in his sideboard there. Let me scroll down real quick. I do apologize. I did not just have time to find a way to successfully show the deck. Oh, and Death Spark. That's going to be definitely tough to deal with. Something that Hustle did not find in the first game, might have helped out a lot. It's going to be a very, very strong play. The Young Wolf will come back as a 2/2. And joking about, yes, the Fume Spitter does reset the Undying, and that is what Hustle did wrong last time. But that is, yet there is a single Bone Splitter out of the sideboard there for Drinkard. Kind of an interesting addition, maybe in place of a rank or something like that, wanting to do obviously just a little bit more damage as fast as possible in this particular matchup. We saw in the last game he was able to get him down pretty low, but with the use of those brown skills, he was E-Hustle was able to keep himself in this game, and for way longer than he probably should have, getting down to 2 life or lower, and being able to come back off of that continued cycling. So an attempt to put a ranker on this Young Wolf, which would be great. Looks like there will be an answer here from Hustle. Yep, definitely in form of Edict, and that is what we talked about in the first game. Will prevent the ranker from actually entering the battlefield, which means that it will successfully stay in the graveyard. That would have been a big play if Drinkard was able to land that. You'd be looking at the Young Wolf, which would be the 2/2 from the Undying. It would have the additional 2 plus trample on ranker, and then another 2 off the Bone Splitter. So it would have been absolutely fantastic. He would have been swinging through there with a 5 trampler. 6 trampler. God, basic math, not my strong suit, as we've seen already today. But actually getting some excitement out of these games. Last week, we saw so much of E-Hustle and his different Tortured Existence decks, and there's so little to say about them, because once he really gets going, it's just very non-interactive. We saw even last game, he had available to him 5 mana, which meant he's going to sit there, just activate that 5 times and gain what life he can off of the brown scale. And the continued combos like that, it's really neat. It's definitely a very strong thing, and I think this is going to be the hardest matchup for him. So again, if he's able to take down Drinkard here for Sneaky Little Green Men, they could definitely be in trouble. You'll have to probably see Weaver coming out. Ooh, and a Duress. So he did decide to bring those in. Kind of a nice play as well. Going to enable him to remove... what is that? Oh, man, Tranquility. He did bring in the Tranquility as well from his sideboard. So Duress is going to be able to take care of things like that. One of the biggest things that he needs to look out for, again, is going to be those relics. So the Duress is going to help him there. Snuff Out coming in to finish off that Shinin. Again, like he says, -1 damage. So he's, it wasn't going to do much. Obviously, with the Bone Splitter put on it, it would be definitely harder, but, it's just, it's not going to have the trample. He could have, I guess, chumped with the Fume Spitter. Wouldn't have been that effective. Probably going to try and save that for later on against things like the Ranger, or even trying to kill off one of the Persists. Sentinel coming down for Drinkard. Going to be a very creature-based game here. Bone Splitter probably being attached. 2 mana open. I mean, let's see. Drinkard's hand was Sentinel and Ranger, so obviously holding back the Ranger at this point again because the Fume Spitter on the field will just simply cancel that out. Bone Splitter is going on there now. What is interesting, I didn't notice until now, actually, he does kind of lose this Death Spark. The ability on this Death Spark to keep coming back is entirely based on the fact that he has a creature above it, but with that Edict coming down, he's canceled out this Death Spark. There is another one still in the deck, so he's going to have to look to find that if he's going to... Ooh, and there's the Macabre actually hard casting it, which is interesting. But it does provide him with the flying, which will get some damage through there. But, if he wants to keep that Death Spark combination going, he will need to find a second one there. So, Drinkard, 3 cards in hand. We know one of those is a Ranger. A little bit of thought going into this. Like I said, being on a team with Seaweaver and Sneak Attack, both of those players well known in the former daily events. May they rest in peace. And he's going to have plenty of good coaching if he is in a state of debate over any particular play. Again, I think one of the more important things will be keeping an eye on his clock. We did see from last week that being a bit of an issue. Swing through coming here. Looks like he's willing to trade the Macabre for the Sentinel. Unfortunately, without that trample, Bone Splitter is really great. not as good as Rancor. Obviously, that trample ability is going to give him that extra 2 damage, which we will not see right now. 2 coming out, it is the safe hold elite. So this is where I said if he manages to activate that persist, it's going to come back as a 1-1, and the Fume Spitter can finish that off. Putting the Ranger down now, kind of interesting. Obviously, with no Torture, there's no way to continually recur the Fume Spitter. So he's kind of tempting Hustle, seeing if Hustle wants to use that right now and take out the Ranger. I'm not sure that's going to be what he wants. I think maybe the bigger threat is going to be the Safe Hold Elite because of the fact that it's going to come back. But we'll have to see what he comes up with. Only 2 cards in hand. Again, a very precarious position here for E-Hustle. That was obviously a lot of words. 2 cards in hand for Drinker. Both players getting very low on options. Bone Splitter is being attached to the Elite. Only attacking through with that. Obviously, assuming that Hustle would want to simply trade the Ranger and the Spitter. Looks like he's going to block, possibly activate that to kill off the Ranger at this point. Yep. So he's going to prevent the 4 damage and use the ability to kill off the Ranger. Kind of works out in favor of Drinkard. He does finally get that Fume Spitter off the board. Unfortunately, if when Hustle, because it's only a matter of time, does land that Tortured Existence, it's going to be able to come back. And a second Ranger going out right now. Not the most important card at this point in the game. Especially Drinkard empties his hand now. I mean, it is going to get him a little bit of replayability, a couple of blockers. But it's not going to be the most important thing. What Drinkard really probably wants at this point is a bit of extra pump there. Throw in a little something, get a Vines, find himself one of those nice sweet pump spells to get things through. Only 2 cards in hand for Hustle, still making land drops, which is not good. That means he's not really drawing into what he needs to pull out this win. Down to 10 life. Drinkard definitely having him starting to get on the ropes. No Brown Scales in play, no Tortured just yet. Oh, I spoke too soon. So Tortured will finally come down, and plenty of mana. You know, Hustle is well established at this point. If he does have Brown Scale, this is the opportunity to discard and start gaining that life. Stinkweed Imp going down. Okay, so he did have a bit of a play there. Looks like he's getting back the Fume Spitter, which he can use again to kill off the Ranger after blocking the Safe Hold Elite. So going to combat. We'll have to see what the choice is here. Attacking through with both the Archer and the Elite, we'll probably see a chump on the Elite and trade the Ranger and Spitter once again. Kind of interesting to me, I think, the Archer. Most Stompy decks will run Scattershot Archer in the sideboard for the Delver Blue matchup. Drinkard does have a little bit of an advantage in that matchup as he was running the Archer in 2 copies in the main deck. Does run a 3rd in the sideboard to kind of even that out a little more. It makes me wonder, I guess, because, you know, he brought in so many things out of his sideboard, including that Tranquility and the Bone Splitter. If he even reached, you know, the relics are obviously a must-have. If he continued to reach here and bring in those sabotages, which I would not be surprised for, that's a significant number of spells that he would be bringing in from his sideboard. And I want to know what he got out of there, because I kind of feel like if it were me, I would want to get those scatter shots out of there. It's not a terrible card. Obviously wants to do as much damage as possible, as fast as possible, especially after last game. But at the same time, you know, I guess maybe in anticipation of E-Hustle bringing in all of those extra kill spells. So starting to get combo off a little bit here. Obviously there is no kind of finisher for this particular combo, but able to start activating. We're going to open this a little more. Start activating those Tortured Existence, bringing back a Fume Spitter. You could continue, I guess, to chump block the Safe Hold Elite. Again, kind of the downside of Bone Splitter. You really want that trample ability. So that's the only play at this point in time, again, in the favor of Drinkard. Oh, and going to equip the Bone Splitter to the Skulk, which cannot be chump blocked by the Spitter. But what you really want here if you're E-Hustle is the Brown Scales, and that's definitely in favor of Drinkard here, our Stompy player, not seeing those Brown Scales go into play. Chump block is coming in on there. Probably activate to reduce the archer to... Oh, no. Okay. He's going to try and kill off the Skulk. Obviously will not happen this turn, but he could do it on the following turn. But down to 5 life. Sentinel coming down. Pretty good creature wall. If we do see a top deck into a Crypt Rats here for Hustle, this could be devastating if you're Drinkard. 1 card in hand at this point. Looks like he is going to dredge the Imp. Ingot Chewer. That's interesting. So we're dredging up the Imp here. Alright, sorry. Taking a minute. I definitely was right. The Ingot Chewers are sideboard. So he sideboarded in... This is definitely an interesting move. He sideboarded in the Ingot Chewer. The only artifact... Oh, no. Okay. Alright. Sorry. Overreaction. I take it back because of the relics. That's probably why he brought it in. Here I was thinking that E-Hustle just trying to outmaneuver the sideboard. Probably bringing those Chewers to deal with the relics as opposed to the Bone Splitter, which I don't think I would have expected Drinkard to bring in. So finally a Brown Scale coming into play. Able to gain a little bit of life at this point, but with 1 card in hand, which I believe is the Fume Spitter. 2 now. It is a land and a Fume Spitter. Okay. Still not quite going to be enough. On the attack next turn, Chump blocks 2 of the damage, either on the Elite or the Sentinel, and exchanges the Fume Spitter for the Skulk. It'll be interesting to see whether Drinkard decides to move the Bone Splitter to another creature at this point. Just kind of under the assumption that the Pit Skulk is going to die here anyways, or if he just leaves it there, kind of forcing the Fume Spitter counter to go onto the Skulk. So a bit of thought here, 2 cards in hand for Drinkard. What you would really love to see is maybe this Rancor that he lost earlier, a little bit of trample to kind of deal with this constant chump blocking, and at 5 mana, Hustle, may look like he's on the ropes, but having that Brown Scale is enough. He can start gaining significant life and canceling out basically this kind of small army. I mean, he's got 4 creatures in play, but the Skulk is the biggest at 3, and it looks like he will move the Bone Splitter. So, and whatever the biggest is, obviously, is just a result of the Bone Splitter's attachment. He's probably going to lose the Skulk here, not take 4. He's only going to get through 3 damage, and that's easily going to be canceled out on the following turn based on this Tortured Existence. Yep, so as expected, Fume Spitter chump blocking the Sentinel, probably before damage activating to kill off the Skulk. There it is. Taking a total of 3 damage, putting him down to 6. But having, again, that 5 mana and the Brown Scale, he's going to be in pretty good shape. And can still get back that Fume Spitter to continue chump blocking. I wouldn't be surprised next turn, leaving the Fume Spitter in play. Again, chump blocking the Sentinel at 4. And then using the activation to simply reduce the Archer to a 0-1. Once these Archers are a 0-1, they really can't do anything. Obviously, Drinkard could move the Bone Splitter onto it to make it, a Nemesis once again. But, having that 0 attack power is going to leave it basically useless. And he does finally get this second Death Spark. We talked about it earlier. Kind of canceled out the first one, having to cast that Diabolic Edict, but we'll get the second one. And again, as we sit here, this is the first match, and this is going to be the second game. Drinkard took down the first game. If there's any matchup from this team that can pull off this win, it is going to be Drinkard. But you have to watch out the 9 minutes left. If E-Hustle does manage to pull out the win here, and I definitely would not count him out at this point in time, if he can manage to pull off the win here, what we're going to see is that Drinkard's clock is going to become very important. I do not think if Drinkard loses this game, he can pull out a third game based on a clock that's already under 10 minutes. It's definitely an interesting thing. You kind of do not want to auto-yield the Tortured Existence based on the fact that he's running those relics. Hasn't found one yet either. That's going to be troublesome, but maybe you auto-yield it until the point where you can find the relic to put into play, because, like I said, if this goes to game 3, I think we can just automatically count Drinkard out based on clock alone. So I expect here, with no other plays, attack through a chump block going on the Sentinel, activation of the Fume Spitter on an Archer to prevent another damage off of that, taking again 3, And, you know, again, leaving that at 1. You know, he has plenty of mana, can move the Bone Splitter over. But this is where things definitely start to get complicated. You know, even though E-Hustle gets down to 10 life, that's something we saw in many of the games. If you checked out the Academy Showcase, or when you see the videos go out from last week, you will see it's something that, oh, and using it on the safe hold. Okay, that's not where I thought he was going with that. Well, that will cause him future issues, but E-Hustle in most of these games, and that's kind of the nature of Tortured Existence, will get down to very low life and is able to stay in it thanks to the life gain on the brown scales, and, you know, continued use there. And more importantly, he needs mana, which is something he already has. You know, Death Spark here. I'm a little surprised he didn't. Okay, he's still going to get that going off of that, thankfully, on that Fume Spitter ability on the Dredge. So back up to 7 again. Like I said, easily sitting below 10. And not that afraid because of the fact that he's got so much mana available to him. Only thing he's going to repeatedly want back is the Fume Spitter. Rest of his mana can easily be dumped into reuse on these brown scale and gaining life that way. You just cannot count this deck out, and I seriously am concerned for this team and Drinkard if he cannot pull out this win. So, Drinkard's turn again, moving the Bone Splitter to the Young Wolf. Attacking through with everything. Again, probably we'll see a chump block on probably the Wolf. Yep, chump block on the Wolf. Probably going to sacrifice it before damage so that the Wolf does not come back with Undying. Yep. Reducing damage on the Sentinel, and he's only going to take 4. Back down he goes. Oh, 3. Man, again, what did I say? Terrible math. So Skulk going to come in. That's kind of nice. The combination of the Skulk and the Bone Splitter works really well because you're able to really buff up the power, even if he brings back that Fume Spitter to reduce the Skulk. With the Bone Splitter attached, it's still going to have a 3 power. And we'll have to see what he can come up with. Again, you know, plenty of opportunity here for E-Hustle to gain significant life based off of all of this land that he has available to him. It's kind of the pieces you really need to stay in these games. Lots of swamps, a Tortured Existence on the battlefield, and a brown scale somewhere. You know, if it's in your hand, you'll find a way to discard it. If it's in your graveyard, all the better off you are. So dumping a lot here, getting back the Fume Spitter, probably replaying it at this point. And it'll be interesting to see what Drinkard's move is here. If he leaves the Bone Splitter on the Young Wolf, we will probably see chump block on the Young Wolf, and again, before damage, maybe kill off the Sentinel, maybe reduce the Skulk down to a 1/1. But 1 card in hand from Drinkard still. I don't know if maybe it's a land. He's up to 2 now on the draw. But I don't know if it's maybe a land, if he's trying to bluff something out. It will be interesting to see. He kind of is just like a Vines of Vastwood away from pulling out this win. You know, one of those really big pumps is what he needs. He seems to be just drawing creatures, which kind of leaves me to believe that, you know, he left in these Scattershot Archers and sideboarded out some of his pump spells, which, you know, I'm not sure I personally agree with, but, you know, you'll have to not argue with results in the end. So he does choose to move the Bone Splitter over, which is going to prevent the Fume Spitter from chump blocking it. Thanks to that ability, as a 4/2 swinging his way. Probably going to see, again, a chump block somewhere, and then an activation of the Fume Spitter to finish off maybe the Sentinel. Chump blocking the Wolf, not going to trade that, doesn't want the Wolf to come back bigger. So definitely going to see the activation there. What that tells us, he's going to take 6, put him down to 4. But still not quite out of it. I mean, ultimately, you consider last turn where E-Hustle was down to 6 before gaining all this life. He's able to kind of keep himself in this. Oh, Death Spark. Going to put that on there. Alright, there it is. It's going to kill it off. Alright, Fume Spitter. Going to again stay on top of that as well. So it means E-Hustle is going to be able to get that off. And you see here, like I said, Hustle was down to 6 life last turn. Now after this attack, he's down to 7. So that's kind of the what you're seeing out of this life gain is really just incredible. Going to pay the 1 to get that back, and we'll probably see more life gain going on here. Looks like instead of the draw, we are going to see a dredge ability on Stinkweed Imp. I think kind of the thing that makes this deck so hard to talk about, obviously Stompy being a pretty good matchup here, the best chance for sneaky little green men to pull this out here in the finals. But what the hardest thing is about this is when you see, if we see Hustle win this game and move on to the next round, you know, against any other deck, it can win. You know, really good matchup against Mono Black Control, but ultimately it takes a lot of time to win. It's going to win on really small creatures and not a lot of damage. So here we will see the life gain continue on. I imagine a cast there out of the Stinkweed Imp. No? Okay. Fume Spitter coming back down. He's going to continue his shenanigans here with the Fume Spitter. You know, continuing to chump blocks such as the Archer here. And again, probably activating the ability to reduce the Sentinel to 0. Ledgewalker coming down. Hexproof ability, I guess, is going to provide him an out. We do know the 1 card in hand from E-Hustle is going to be the Death Spark. So, I mean, I guess ultimately he could chump block, say, the Young Wolf, and use the Death Spark plus Fume Spitter to kill off the Archer. And only take 2, putting him right back at 7 where he was. Okay, looks like he's going to use that there instead. Fume Spitter on the block. Okay, chumping the Archer, activating the ability to kill, or I'm sorry, put a counter on the Archer. Yep, that's as expected. Now we will probably see if there's no other plays. Oh, okay, I think if I were him, I would have moved that Bone Splitter. Provide the Archer with at least some body. I mean, ultimately, it's not going to matter, as we see he does get back the Death Spark. Excuse me. And is going to continue the life gain, so still at 7, even after several attacks. We saw a really fast start out of Drinkard. He's gotten lots of creatures on this battlefield, but he's not been able to really out-damage the life gain on these brown scales. What you really need to pull this down is this fast start. We saw it, and there was hope, because there was no early Tortured. I think it took him till turn 4 or 5 to get that on the field. There was no brown scale until even a couple of turns after that. But E-Hustle just able to stick into this thanks to, you know, the chump blocks that we've seen out of Fume Spitters, and the ability of those -1 or -1 counters to really keep this population under control. Attack through with everything here, I imagine. No target really for the Death Spark unless he wants to kill off the Wolf, and I don't think that is the answer. Now the shenanigans start. We do finally have a Grave Scribbler coming into play. Return to hand there, and we do see 1 in the graveyard, so we will see probably an activation here of that Madness cost. Yep, here it comes. That's going to go down, come back into play, possibly grabbing the other one, going to chump block, probably the Archer, again, to keep that Young Wolf from going up any larger. No, and it looks like he will actually target down the brown scale. I guess that's fine. Again, with the Tortured in play, plenty of options to keep that locked down. I think what Drinkard really needs here is a Relic. He is in such a tough spot. Scrabbler's going to provide some chump blocker that will be able to actually kill things off. Ledgewalker is continually doing damage. He's not going to have any flyers unless he gets back one of these Fairy Macabres. But he needs to find it fast. He's kind of all in. There's 5 minutes left on his clock. So again, this is only game 2 in the first match. This is the best chance that sneaky little green men have of pulling down this win. And if they're going to beat E-Hustle, who basically just needs to stall here for 5 minutes, if they are able to beat E-Hustle, this is their best chance. He just needs to stall. If he can manage to win this one game, and now having that imp, actually, he's going to have the blocker for the Ledgewalker, but if he can pull off a win in this one game, that's going to be it. And Drinkard knows it. With 5 minutes on the clock, he's just going to, pass this game along, trying to go to the third game and hope that he can find things. I don't know if he can pull this off. Again, really strong start, but E-Hustle able to just kind of drag that out. I mean, Drinkard's got all of the options available. I think that he definitely made the right call there, conceding instead of continually playing out that game. If he continued to play that game out, he would have definitely been in trouble because Hustle was in a really great spot and he clearly had no answer to deal with it. Hustle could just put up the wall there and keep passing the turn along, just eating clock time. I mean, Drinkard has everything he needs to win this game. Unfortunately, what he does not have at this point is going to be time. So he's going to go into the third game after taking the first game very handily. And again, that was a really great sign because last week we did see Drinkard manage to pull off this win, but he had to take it to 3 games. This time around, it looked really good because he managed to win the first game before sideboarding. You know, he had a really good game after sideboarding. He's got plenty of answers for this particular matchup, especially if he can find himself a relic. So you figure after winning that first game and with so many answers to this particular game, in the sideboard, you know, you go into the second thinking this is going to be an easy win. He gets off to a really fast start, but E-Hustle able to just continually stall things down. And again, if he pulls off this win, and you know, he's only got to hang on for 5 minutes. If he can hang on for 5 minutes, then Drinkard's out of it. And we're going to probably see Weaver come out next to try and take this down. So it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens here. Again, whether or not Drinkard wants to be aggressive in his option to try and mulligan this. I'll give this a second here. Okay. Wasn't sure. Sometimes the client lags out on getting that second game started. So we'll have to see. Hopefully he can pull this off. 4 minutes and 55 seconds left on his clock. Also only 10 minutes there for Hustle, who's, you know, again, not in a great shape, but Drinkard's definitely going to be paying attention. You see how quick this is going to play out here. It'll definitely be a shame if this game comes down to a time loss, because, you know, both players have done really well. This is a very interesting matchup. One of the things that you don't usually see out of Tortured Existence is an interesting matchup. So, damage coming through, really good start here with the turn 1 Sentinel into turn 2 Skulk. That's going to be pretty good for damage. I'll have to see how early, if Hustle can get an early Tortured Existence going. And it looks like Drinkard might have kept a 1-land hand to make that happen there. Let's see. Scroll up. I don't remember looking at the... So Hustle had to mulligan to 6. Don't know if he was just looking at land count, but Drinkard did decide to keep this. Maybe he got a pretty aggressive hand. Maybe a couple of pump spells coming E-Hustle's way. But yeah, it'll definitely be a disappointment if this game comes down to time, as both players have played really well. We've seen some great stuff out of this matchup. Oh, double life staff. Oh, God. I bet you... I'm willing to bet that E-Hustle did not have those in his deck after the first game. And then when he saw the clock remaining, he decided to bring those in to try and really stall this out. So it looks like plenty of creatures coming down for Drinkard. I would not be surprised if we saw an early Fume Spitter plus Life Staff combo going online here. Oh, okay, Fairy going to come down, will at least trade with one of these guys, these nice 2/2s that he has going on. Probably the Skulk at this point, because he does have an actual chance to block it. Maybe even just takes the damage, waits until next turn until he can get both of these staffs equipped. No, he is going to block. Okay, interesting. He decides not only to block, but to block the young wolf and let the wolf come back. This will be interesting. Shinnin comes out, which means that on the attack next turn, he's going to be forced to block that. So this game, did Drinkard manage to pull this out within like a minute? 2 life staffs will be probably equipped to the Macabre. No. Passes the turn along, doesn't even equip the life staffs. 4 mana, maybe he's looking for a Snuff Out or double Edict. On the attack here, with everything, Hustle's going to be forced to block the Shinnin before coming out. Okay, he's going to snuff out the Shinnin. I'm okay with that. Now he has his choice of blockers. He's going to take 7 unless Drinkard has a pump spell. 2 cards in hand. Does he have it? No, no. So Hustle's going to go down to 1. I still don't know what he could have going for him here. Geez, okay, Ledgewalker's going to come down. That provides him an opportunity to put out an attack that is not blocked. Maybe we see Fume Spitter plus double Life Staff now? Faithless Looting. And he just concedes. Okay, so Hustle had nothing, and Drinkard able to pull that out with 3 minutes left on his clock. Oh man, I did not think he was going to be able to do that, and that's great because that is definitely the only matchup where they would be able to pull that down. So we're going to have to get into the second game here as Drinkard and Stompy for Sneaky Little Green Men takes down E-Hustle and Team DBC in the first match. So we'll have to see whether they bring out J-Siri or Measle in this second.